So Michael, can a side chick sue a sponsor or sugar daddy and say, I want this property because when we're entering into the agreement, he promised to build me a house, promised to buy me a house or rent a place for me, etc.
Okay, so for side chicks, let's start it from the point of the law. So once you are married via ordinance, any third marriage or any third parties who come in are actually or may be guilty of what we call bigamy.
Okay.
And so that is a crime which is punishable.
So the person that the side chick is suing can take the other person to.
So the side chick is not married to the husband.
Okay.
So here I'm talking about somebody who has actually contracted a second marriage after the ordinance.
Okay.
I'm now coming to the issue of the side chick. So with the side chick, he as the man or as the woman, if he has a side boy, is cheating on their partner.
Okay.
And that is adultery.
Okay.
And so on that basis, your partner can go to court to ask for a divorce.
But the side chick has
Now,
no right
the
to ask.
side chick has no right within the laws to come and say that because there was a promise, the courts should enforce it.
Okay.
And if you recall, I talked about pre-marital agreements.
Yeah.
If there is an agreement which the court thinks is enforceable under the circumstances, the court will do so, especially if this side chick is pregnant or has had children for you.
Okay. So even if it's not a side chick and it is your girlfriend,
Yes.
you didn't marry her, but you built a house and maybe you people had some agreements that were written down. This is prenuptial, right? And then she takes you to court. Will the court hold that?
So again, the court is going to look at the circumstances.
Okay.
So you have had an agreement which you have signed that this property you want to give it to the lady. Now in our land law, when you as a married man have property during the marriage, you cannot dispose of that property without the consent of your partner.
So I wanted to marry Lady A. We bought land together in our name. And unfortunately, due to her bad behavior, I didn't marry her. And I married Lady B. Can Lady A take me to court and then say the property that Lady B and I completed, but the land we bought together, she wants that property?
Yes, so she cannot say she wants the property in its entirety.
Okay.
But if it is joint property, which both of you acquired before you marrying Lady B, then she has a right to that property. And then again, joint property, it is 50-50.
No, we bought land at Kaswa.
Good. Before marriage.
50,000 cedis.
Good.
And we registered it.
In your names.
In our names.
Good. So that's joint property.
Yes.
Good.
And then we fell apart.
Good.
Then I married someone else.
Yes.
And we built a $200,000 property on it together.
Okay. So when you fell apart, what happened to the joint property?
It's still registered in our names.
Okay. So then it means that it is still joint property. The fact that you have built a $200 million property on land that was bought 10,000 does not change the nature of ownership of that property.
That's serious.
So at the point when the two of you fell apart, that is when you should have what? Ensured that this property is either shared or you deal with the property at that stage. If you don't do that and you go ahead and build on it, the nature of its ownership has not changed.
Wow. So the person can come and make a claim and take half.
Exactly. So what you need to do is that to the extent that the two of you are no longer interested in your relationship, then anything both of you have put together in joint ownership, you ensure that you share it before you continue your life. And that is why when you divorce, the properties would be distributed. And then when you go your ways and you want to go and marry, you have no problems coming back to the first marriage.
Wow, this is really eye-opening, because I'm sure there will be lots of issues like this that people are experiencing.
Yes.
You promised to marry me, you didn't marry me, I got broken heart, I left. But then we bought land together. Now your new partner maybe even contributed significantly more than you, I can come and take that property?
Yes.
Wow.
Because the original ownership of the land is joint ownership.
Okay.
What then it means is that your partner cannot sell that land or property without your consent. You can also not do that without her consent.
Then this brings me to your former life, right, as someone who manages projects, a QS, and all these things. Then it means that the registration of land is very critical to everything that we've discussed so far. So maybe can you share some of your experiences? Because I know a lot of young people, when they are trying to even sell land, they've not, when I ask them, do you have the title? They've not registered it. It's, oh, let the person come, we'll go and see the chief and all these things. How important is registering your land?
Yes, so land registration has been the bane of our development when it comes to real estate and for people beginning their life to own houses. And for that matter, you see a lot of young men and women running to the estate developers to purchase property, which is quite expensive for them sometimes. And so that is the reason why a lot of our young people are unable to own their own property. And so for land administration, we would say that the process is a bit cumbersome. And so the appeal is that we would want it to be easier. We would want it to be a straightforward transaction for people. However, in recent times, the courts have been very, very, very stringent when it comes to the administration of land. To ensure that people don't keep selling land to 2, 3, 4, 5 people. And so what happens is that once you have seen any land that you want to buy, there are procedures you have to go through. The first one is that you can enter into a contract for you to purchase the land. That is different from the registration process. The reason why you want to enter into the contract is that if at any point there is a breach, whatever you have spent, you can actually go to court and retrieve that amount. So you enter into an agreement, that's a contract with the vendor to purchase that property, which then allows you to make a down payment, and then you go through the process we call the due diligence process. Where if you have a lawyer, he or she may take the site plan, take it for search first at the Lands Commission to prove that yes, this land that has been identified is truly owned by the named person the vendor is telling you about. Then there's what we call the root of title, which the lawyer would pursue to ensure that as he or she traces the title, there are no broken links, which means that whoever is trying to sell that property to you actually has the right to sell that property to you. So that is very important when it comes to the due diligence. And then the next thing is that after the search at the Lands Commission, you would also have to search at the collateral registry. Here we are looking at whether or not that property or that land has been encumbered either by a mortgage. And usually there is a register where that land is mortgaged. And so if it is, your lawyer will come back and let you know that that land that you want to buy is already encumbered. And if you want to go ahead, fine, but if you don't want to go ahead, then you can go back and retrieve what you have already paid for.
Because you have a contract.
Exactly. So it is important that first you enter into a contract, go through the due diligence process, and then where everything has been proven, including the root of title, then you can go ahead and make the payments. And also ensure that any time you're making your final payments, there is nobody on the land and that you are getting vacant possession of the land.
I think this one will have to come back a full day.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So whilst you're making the payment, in the contract that you have signed, there is a portion where you have to start the registration. So usually some may want you to pay up to 70%, and then they trigger the registration process. So you go to the Lands Commission, pick up the forms, and then you do all the signing, and then you make all the payments for processing.
Okay.
This takes between 1 month to 3 months, depending on the backlog or the issues surrounding that particular property. So once all of these have been cleared, and the yellow card will be given to you, there'll be publication to ensure that if anybody has any right to that land, that person raises the objections as quickly as possible. Once you've gone past that stage and the registration is complete, you make the final payment to the vendor, and then you close the process. So registration is very important. So once you have your documentation, you don't go to sleep. If you leave your property for more than 2 years, there are high chances that somebody may want to come there to take your property. And so it is important that whilst you are buying it, you also have plans for its development. So some people may even rent it out for farming. Others would come in and then wall it and then put a small property there and get somebody to be there to take care of it. Or you plant cash crops, or you make sure that your presence is felt.
Okay.
In which case, nobody would come and encroach on it.
Okay.
But if you buy the land, you register it, and you leave it to life follow, chances are another party would come and trespass on the land. Now, the issue is this. It's not just about you having the documentation. You are not going to go to court with a person trespassing, and that is not something you would want to do. So when you buy your land and you register it, please ensure that you take possession. Okay. Because anybody in possession has what? Right to claim that property. And then the two of you have to go to court. And if you allow somebody to be on your land for 12 years without you stepping there, that person can go to court and take over the property from you. So don't buy land and let it lie fallow.
Especially the people in the diaspora.
Yes.
You bought the land, you've traveled, you are not coming back.
Yes. So you get somebody to stay there, you wall it, or you even give it out for farming.
Okay.
Very, very important. Otherwise, by the time you come back, the land will be developed. So these days, you would see that in the indentures, they would state categorically that if the land is not developed after 3 years, they will enter into possession and sell it to somebody else and then give back your money to you. So once you are committed to that as part of the covenants in the documentation of the indenture, within the 3 years, you need to start developing the land. Because sometimes the land is in an area where they can't continuously watch over it.
Okay.
And so once you have bought it, you should do everything to protect the land and to take possession. So registration is very important because that gives you the first right to the property, unless, of course, there is another right that supersedes yours, which is proven in court.
Quick question. Is indenture a contract?
To a large extent, it is, because it will state the parties, it will state the date, it will state the duration, whether it's a lease or a sublease or an assignment. It is going to state that. And then it is also going to state the covenants. And then it will be signed by the parties.
Okay.
And then it will have to also be sent for notarization. So all of that makes it a contract.
Okay.
But then it should not end there. It ends only when you have fully registered the land.
Okay.
But whilst you are registering, you should be protecting the land and you should be taking possession of the land.
Still on the issue of divorce and the position of the law, how long does it typically take for a divorce case to be finalized?
So the courts would have to go through the trial. In fact, divorce is one of the cases where you can't give a default judgment.
Okay.
You would have to go through the trial before the divorce is granted. And no court is happy granting a divorce.
Wow.
Because that is a family that is broken.
Okay.
So depending on the complexities, it can take between 6 months to maybe even 3 years.
Wow.
Depending on the complexities. There have been instances where they start the divorce and they go back and reconcile.
Yeah. I've heard instances where they
it
even
happens.
have another child and all.
Yes. So the court is not in a rush.
Okay. So it's
Grant
intentional.
divorce. It is not also intentional.
Okay.
Because if one party is at the mercy of the other party and is suffering, the court must relieve that person of the suffering.
Okay.
So it is not intentional that you have sometimes the divorce cases running over a period of time. It all depends on the complexity of the divorce itself.
Okay. My last question for you is, where the marriage ended, not through divorce, but one party died, what's the position of the law, especially in protecting the kids, the wife, or the husband, etc.?
Okay. So it is expected that once you're alive and you have properties, you might write a will. If you don't write a will on how the properties are distributed, then they will have to be distributed by the PNDC Law 111, which we call the Interstate Succession Law. So in that law, your wife and your children are protected.
Okay.
The same way, if you write your will and you don't give anything to your wife and your children, the Constitution comes into play.
Really?
It will protect your wife and your children. When you have children below the age of 18 and you have not given them anything in your will, they can go to the High Court and actually request that part of your property is used for their upkeep. Wow. So the law protects the wife and children whether you have a will or you don't have a will.
Okay.
So children are very important.
Okay.
Wife also very important.
Okay.
So whether you write a will or not, the laws of Ghana have adequate provisions to protect your wife and your children.
Fantastic. I think you have answered all the questions that I have. So today we are here with Michael, and Michael is very seasoned when it comes to the law and property and marriage. However, there's a side to Michael that we need to know, how he started his professional career. So Michael, just tell us a bit about yourself, because I know you also, have experience in the real estate sector.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank. So I started my career in construction, building technology, and quantity surveying from the Accra Polytechnic. And so after school, the first job that I worked on is currently being used for the BTech programs at Accra Polytechnic.
Okay.
Very interesting. I loved that project because that was the very first project I did after school. So that is what actually pushed me into climbing up the ladder when it came to construction management, and then quantity surveying, and then eventually project management. So I did not stop there because I wanted to make sure that I enhanced my skills and knowledge in all of this. So I did a degree, and from the degree I also did a master's in engineering and management from the Coventry University. Wow. So I had the chance to be working with a real estate company where I was the project manager. And so I realized from the interaction with most of the clients that having their own way, they want to own their own property rather than buying from the real estate companies, because it was expensive for them. And then also, if you don't pay, you have penalties. Whereas if you are able to buy your own land, you can take your time and complete it to your own desires. Then I realized that, look, there were also issues with most of the lands that some of these people have bought. And so instead of them going through litigation, they just leave the land and then come and buy the real estates. And then that brought me to the point that because of the dynamic nature of property, people were also having issues with their marriages. And how can I help in those circumstances? You have clients who come to you and say, oh, I want to buy property, I want to buy land, can you build for me? I don't want my wife, or I don't want my husband to know about it, or I don't want my family to know about it. So that led me to the legal aspect. So right after my master's, I decided to take a dig at the law.
Wow.
So that led me through to the law school until I graduated in 2020. So since graduation, there's been lots and lots of demand when it comes to property, when it comes to marriage. Reason being that a lot more people do put monies together, especially those who are staying outside, to buy properties here in Ghana, and then the unfortunate happens. They are divorced, and now sharing of the property becomes an issue. And so that is what had actually led me to where I am at currently. I am a member of the Chartered Institute of Building UK. I'm a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors UK. I'm also a member of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. And then I'm also a member of the Association of Project Managers.
Oh, you're a big man.
So I've been doing all of this together with the legal. Anytime there's the need for any legal advice, anytime I have to advise my clients, I look, I pull from all the knowledge that I have to actually advise them. So that is my journey when it comes to my profession.
No, so growing up, what did you want to be?
So growing up, I really wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
And I did exactly that.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an engineer at every time. And then I also recall that when I was in Aquinas Secondary School.
Oh, Old Tom.
Yes.
I'm an Old Tom.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, the connection is there. I recall Father Bacha, may his soul rest in peace, telling my dad at that time that I was very good when it came to the reading subjects.
Okay.
And so instead of pursuing a science-related subject, it would have been good for me to do some reading.
Okay.
And at that time, I think he mentioned journalism, he mentioned law.
Okay.
So it meant that the law had been there hiding
Yeah.
until I started working in the real estate industry, when I realized that, look, a lot depended on the law, especially when you want to protect your property, when you want to ensure that everything regarding your property is taken good care of. So that's how come
it's a very interesting journey, right? Touching multiple countries and different, professions, and how you've been able to combine everything. So which one do you enjoy more, building or
I think that they work hand in hand.
Yeah.
They work hand in hand. So if anybody brings to you anything regarding land registration, you're going to look at your knowledge in engineering. Where they're surveying, you're going to look at the coordinates to ensure that they are matching. And then you're now going to look at the law about how you get the property registered for the person. You're also going to look at how you make sure that there's the sales and purchase agreement to ensure that your client is protected. So it's a combination, and I think that in all of it, I enjoy all of them.
Yeah, I think it's a very unique combination.
Yes.
You are sitting on both sides.
Yes.
And based on all your experience, how can we improve the land acquisition process in Ghana? Because that's one of the major headaches that a lot of people are experiencing, and it's actually preventing people from venturing into putting up their own buildings.
Yes. So I think that there have been various attempts at making the registration seamless and easier. But we would say that there has been a lot of improvement from the Lands Commission in terms of search, in terms of registration guidelines, and then even in terms of personnel to advise you on what to do. There's also a lot of knowledge out there regarding what you need to do when it comes to you trying to protect whatever you want to purchase. I think one of the things that the government can do, or the authorities can do to make it easier, is that anytime there are cases of double sales, the culprits must be severely punished.
Yeah.
And these days, the courts are doing that.
Okay.
And so the instances where there are double sales, triple sales on the same plot is gradually waning. But what is happening is that if you buy the property and you don't build on it or you don't develop it, that is where the issues are coming up. But for now, I think that there's a clear path to registration. What would have helped everyone is that if they have every property registered, so that you can just go online, click, and be sure of the ownership. That would have made it
That would make
far,
life
far.
so simple.
Yes, yes. And I know there have been attempts at doing that. I don't know where it has gotten to. The land administration project, it was something that was in the pipelines in those days. Maybe we should try and complete that process so that if you are in the US, if you are in the UK, and anybody offers to sell land for you, it is just a number that you punch in, you make the appropriate payment, and then information on that property is available to you. And then that will help you determine whether or not you want to continue or you don't want to continue at all. It's one of the things that I think that we have to look at. And I think one very good thing that has come out is also the collateral registry, where you can just make payment online and then you can search whether or not that particular name or property
has been used for
exactly
collateral. So speaking about collateral and mortgages, what is the position of the law when you jointly acquired a property in the course of your marriage, or one person acquired, one person assisted to develop whatever combination, but there's a mortgage on it, so you're actually owing money? Yes. And there's a need for a divorce.
Yes, yes. So again, it comes just like in the divorce, you're looking at the contribution of the partners. Again, with mortgage, there are liabilities. So how would the liabilities be shared?
Okay.
So the court is going to look at the circumstances again, and then the liabilities are shared on that basis as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So with everything you've said, one quote I see a lot of Gen Zs and young people say is that marriage is a man's loss. Would you agree to that, or what's your opinion?
Marriage is not a man's loss. The reason we say it's not a man's loss is that when you're entering into marriage as a man, you have the intention of the next generation. Yeah. And the next generation is through you and through your spouse. So you have your children, and you know that it's one of the things that are so dear to you as a man. For properties, they come as and when. But for children and for the next generation, it is important that as you enter the marriage, you know what your intentions are. Now, the courts are not looking at you as the man bearing everything for that marriage. Now, the contribution you have made, the contribution your spouse has made are all taken into consideration. So you as the man, you don't lose, because here you are with the woman that you have been sleeping with. Her value also diminishes. She will not be as the young lady you picked during marriage.
Okay.
What happens to her? Has she also lost? So marriage, no one loses in marriage. The only time you would lose in marriage is when you have the intent to actually cheat.
Okay.
So once you are cheating, you don't have a right to what you think is yours. And that is only when you would say that you have lost that person. But that loss cannot be quantified in monetary terms.
Yeah.
It is your whole life that it is about. So entering into marriage, people are happy and people think about all the good things. And so when you enter into the marriage, you must work and ensure that you have your marriage the way you want it to be.
Men, and I'm speaking because I'm a man, you're also a man. Sometimes we tend to want to carry the burden of the finances and everything on ourselves. And I can't see it to a right? So we feel that, especially when it comes to putting up properties, it is our role to provide accommodation for our family. essentially. And so many men, they don't even involve their partners in building. It's not like they don't tell them, but they want to, working, hey, Charlie, me see now, so I'm growing lean and everything. Based on everything that you said and your experience, would you encourage men to also accept help from their partners?
Yes, I would say that one of the principles is that a man must provide for the family. You must also provide shelter for the family. So to the extent that you're going in for somebody's daughter to become now your wife, to serve you, to bear children for you, you also have the responsibility of taking care of them, providing for their needs, and then providing shelter over them.
Yeah.
That one is not disputed. Now, you as the man, because this responsibility lies on you, these days, the ladies or the wives are able to support, especially when they are in gainful employment. So sometimes, as the man, depending on the skills or knowledge of your wife, you can also set her up to the extent that she can support you.
Okay.
But this is support that she is doing freely.
It shouldn't be, because one of my community people said that based on the fact that when there's a divorce, the property is going to be split, in their words, 50-50.
Yes.
Everything is 50-50. When we are buying 10 bags of cement, wife is buying 5, I'm buying 5.
That is not marriage.
Okay.
That is not marriage. So in marriage, there are responsibilities on both sides. And for the man, your responsibility is to provide food, the shelter, and the clothing. And your wife supports you. Your wife is a helper. Your wife is your helper. So she supports you. Now, if after all this while you want to divorce her, chances are she may not even get another man to marry. But you as the man can get another woman to marry. Chances are these children cannot work to support themselves. So in those circumstances, the court is going to look at the welfare of your wife and the children.
I think it makes sense.
Because the men always have advantage, or most often than not have advantage over the ladies when it comes to earning power.
Okay.
And so the courts are looking at the weaker party in the case.
Wow.
And to ensure that they don't become burdens to society.
Answered all our questions, Michael. It's really a great honor and a pleasure to be with you today and to have you share your wisdom, your experience with the audience. And so if you have any follow-up questions, just comment below or send us an email. Our email is on the screen below. Michael, thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure.